Okay, so when you think of Saudi Arabia, what comes to mind? Probably two things, right? Huge deserts and a whole lot of oil wealth. But behind that super rich image, there's this startling reality. This kingdom, for all its money, is missing one of the most fundamental things for life: water. So, how in the world is a country with zero rivers building one that's going to make the Nile look small? Let's get into it.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Saudi Arabia is the largest country on the entire planet that has no permanent natural rivers. Not one. It's just wild. Almost 98% of the country is just scorching hot sand. Rain, yeah, that's not really a thing there. And yet, somehow, in the middle of all that sand, they're building their own. And we're not talking about some small canal here. This is an artificial river network so massive, it's going to stretch for 12,000 kilometers. That is nearly twice as long as the legendary Nile. Just let that sink in. So that's the big question, isn't it? In a country with no rivers, and with its underground water literally disappearing, where is all this water for this massive new river even coming from? And how is something this huge even possible?
Okay, to really get why they're doing something so extreme, we have to talk about the crisis that's pushing them to do it. It's a crisis that comes from having a ton of people living in one of the driest places you can possibly imagine. This quote really nails the whole paradox. It's like you have a golden palace, but only 2 sips of water to drink. It just drives home the point that all the money in the world doesn't mean a thing if you're running out of the one thing you need to survive. So for a long, long time, the kingdom got by tapping into these really deep underground water reserves. They were basically drinking something called fossil water. Now, this isn't your average groundwater. We're talking about ancient water trapped down there for millions of years. And the key thing is, once you use it, it's gone forever. It's like a battery. You can never, ever recharge. And man, did they burn through that inheritance fast. Back in the 70s, they had this big idea. They wanted to be self-sufficient in food, so they decided to grow wheat in the desert. And you know what? It actually worked. But the cost was catastrophic. By 2003, farming was just gulping down 85% of the entire country's water supply. NASA satellites started sending back pictures showing these underground reserves were just vanishing. So after 3 whole decades, they had to pull the plug on the whole desert wheat dream. And that's not even the whole story. The other part of the problem was just how much water people were using. I mean, look at this. At the height of the crisis, the average person there was using more than double the global average every single day. So that non-rechargeable battery we talked about, it was getting drained from every possible direction. The bottom line was they needed a new source of water, and they needed it yesterday. And that, right there, brings us to their solution: an engineered oasis. This is a project so ambitious, it's almost hard to believe. It's not just about getting water from point A to point B. It's about completely changing the country's entire relationship with its environment. Okay, let's really try to wrap our heads around the scale here again. We're talking about a network of pipes all underground stretching 12,000 kilometers. That is almost long enough to circle the entire planet. This isn't just a project, it's like building a brand new circulatory system for an entire country. And the numbers here are just mind-boggling. It's designed to pump out 9.4 million cubic meters of fresh water. That's 9.4 billion liters every single day. The main river itself is basically a huge underground channel, 11 meters wide and 4 meters deep. And it's all underground to stop the desert sun from just evaporating it all away. The big goal here is to bring back that dream of being self-sufficient, but this time to do it in a way that can actually last. All right, so we're back to that big question. Where is all this water coming from? Well, the answer isn't buried in the sand anymore. It's in the water around the country, the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. And the trick, the magic that turns salty seawater into fresh river water, is a process called desalination. Okay, so the old school way to do this is basically just boiling water, but on a completely insane scale. Picture these giant steel tanks. We're talking football field-sized, just heating up seawater. The water turns to steam, right? But it leaves all the salt behind. Then you just capture that pure steam and cool it back down into fresh water. Sounds simple, but doing it on this scale is just massive. But the real game changer, the technology that's making all this possible, is called reverse osmosis. This is way, way more efficient. Instead of boiling, you use a ton of pressure to literally squeeze seawater through this special superfine membrane.
Honestly, you can just think of it as the world's most advanced water filter. And just how advanced are we talking? Well, the little holes in this membrane are so tiny they can filter out 99% of all the salt and other gunk. The source material had a great way of putting it. The pores are so small that not even a virus can pass through. This is how you get perfectly pure water. And today, this tech provides about 2/3 of all the water the country uses. But of course, making billions of liters of fresh water every day, that doesn't happen for free. When you take all that salt out of the ocean water, you have to do something with it. And that creates this massive, often overlooked environmental problem. Okay, I'm just going to throw a number out there. 329,000. Any guesses what that might be? That is how many tons of super salty, toxic gunk called brine is produced by this process every single day. To put that in perspective, a blue whale, the biggest animal on Earth, weighs about 200 tons. So this is an unbelievable amount of waste we're talking about. And just dumping that stuff back in the ocean, it's a huge problem. The brine is way saltier and warmer than the normal seawater, and it creates these dead zones that kill coral reefs and other marine life. But they are looking at some pretty clever solutions, things like deep-sea diffusers that spread the brine out so it's not so concentrated, and even something called brine mining, which is a really cool idea. Instead of treating it like waste, they try to pull valuable minerals out of it, like magnesium and potassium, turning a problem into a product. So as this whole river network gets bigger and bigger, you realize it's about way more than just water. It's really a statement about the future, right? A bet on technology's power to bend nature to our will. But that bet comes with some serious trade-offs. Here's one last number for you to chew on, 9%. What do you think that could be? That is how much of the entire nation's electricity supply is used for just one thing, powering the giant pumps needed to push all that water uphill. I mean, they're literally fighting gravity to get water to cities in the mountains. Yeah, making a river flow uphill takes an incredible amount of power. So you see, this whole thing is way more than just infrastructure. It's a centerpiece of a new national vision. By 2030, the goal is for this network to provide 100% of the country's water needs. And get this, in 2027, the country with no rivers is going to host the World Water Forum. I mean, that's a statement right there. This entire project is basically them telling the world, look what we can do. With enough money and technology, we can make even the most impossible places livable. Which, of course, leaves us with one last, really big question. Is this whole artificial river thing a brilliant blueprint for the rest of us, for a world that's getting thirstier by the day? Is this the model we should all be following? Or is it more of a cautionary tale, a warning about the incredible cost, both in money and to the environment, of trying to wage a war against nature? The answer to that, whatever it is, could very well shape the future for billions of us on this planet.